definitions of words. One of them was marriage. I believe this is another one. A responsible person would not approve of something that will destroy your brain. But that's what they call themselves. Would legalize weed for recreational and medicinal use. Now that's just another way for them to get all the money to use and also to legalize marijuana. As long as we put it in as medicinal, you can't keep these poor people in pain away from it. Well, that's not true either. So we need to really do our homework on this and do as much reading as you can to understand it. I'll finish reading that. For recreational and medicinal use, and also to give 10 predetermined beneficiaries at sites around the state the exclusive right to grow marijuana commercially. Now I know you've read all this. Ohio would become the 5th state to legalize marijuana for recreational use should issue 3 pass. And they say, but it should not pass. I believe the other states are Oregon, Washington, Colorado, and I believe Vermont.
It's ACAL. It's Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington.
Oh, it is Alaska. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Isn't that where Sarah Palin is?
Yes. And so, very quickly, the only reason that Responsible Ohio's backers are pouring resources into the legalization is because they see it as a way to, guess what, make money. Money is important, more important today in some cases than human beings, apparently. The proposed constitutional amendment would allow people over 21 to use marijuana in the privacy of their homes. Now get this, as long as they don't have more than 9 ounces at one time. Now who's going to determine whether you have 9 ounces? That means the police are going to come and knock on your doors to find out how many ounces of marijuana you have. Makes no sense.
It's the honor system.
Right. It also would allow individuals to grow their own for personal use as long as they register with the state as growers, probably be called farmers now, and as long as no more than 4 of their plants are flowering at any one time. Again, we have agricultural police to come around and check the plants, the 4 plants, and if they're all growing flowers at the same time. The referendum allows about 1,100 sanctioned marijuana stores around the state, which, by way of comparison, would exceed the number of McDonald's restaurants in Ohio by nearly 300. So feature that, people. If you have young children, I have grandchildren, I have great-grandchildren. This is what America is going to be for them in the future. And we need to be responsible and say no. So vote no on issue 3. Now issue 2, this may be confusing to you, and this is why you really need to know the difference between the 2. Issue 2 was voted onto the November 3rd ballot by the Republican-controlled state legislature, and it seeks to nullify Responsible Ohio's issue 3, should it pass, and to prevent future attempts to use constitutional amendments for private economic gain. So this was a good thing, I guess, that our legislature did, to put in place this just in case issue 3 passes. If issue 2 also passes, which it needs to do, then they can nullify issue 3. Confusing, isn't it? Yeah. And this happens to us often when we go to vote. Confusion. Just a couple more things I want to read there. As explained by Secretary of State John Husted, constitutional amendments initiated by the state legislature, such as issue 2, take effect immediately upon passage by the voters, while there's a delay of 30 days before ballot issues begun by citizen petition, such as issue 3, take effect. So Issue 2 would take effect immediately after the November election. So we need to, all ourselves, and encourage everyone else to vote yes on issue 2 and no on issue 3. Are you well confused now? Now, here's another question they asked. If both issues pass November 3rd, then what do we do? Well, it could come down to the number of votes that each issue receives. So it's important for issue 2 supporters to make every effort to vote. In other words, don't leave it blank. Vote, vote yes on 2 and no on 3. Now, one more thing that was just in the paper, the News Herald this morning. Today's 17th. Yes, it was this morning's paper. If many of you saw it, if you get the News Herald, it says the Ohio Supreme Court, semicolon, wording of pot legalization ballot is misleading. Did you, many of you see that? Well, they're going to court. Responsible Ohio people are saying that the wording is illegal on parts of these issues. And so in a split decision, the High Court, we have a High Court in a Supreme Court in Ohio, just like we do in Washington. It seems to be acting almost the same way right now, making law. They sided with the pot supporters in singling out 4 paragraphs of the ballot language. And it said, inaccurately states pertinent information and omits essential information. Well, that's a start, I guess, if we're going to declare something out of order. The court ordered the state's ballot board to reconvene to replace those paragraphs about where and how retail stores can open, the amount of marijuana a person can grow and transport, and the potential for additional growing facilities. And I'll just skip over to passage of issue 3 would make Ohio a rare state to go from outlawing marijuana to allowing it for all uses in one vote, which is really what upsets me very much, is that if those that are pushing the fact that we need it for medicinal use, all right, then let's have a separate vote on medicinal. But since when do we vote on drugs and what kind of drugs our physicians are going to give to us and our pharmaceutical companies are going to produce? It's just kind of mind-boggling. So keep in touch with, don't forget to read everything in the paper, get yourself well informed, and tell all your friends and neighbors. No on 3 and yes on 2.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, a couple other things. We need some volunteers who would be willing to make initial phone calls about the possibility of Matt or Kim speaking to local groups. Okay, so if you belong to a group other than this one, if you would contact me, contact my wife Nancy, use email, whatever, let us know of your group and whether or not Kim or Matt would be welcome to speak in those groups. One of the things that we're trying to do is to get them in front of people, and so that people can get to know them and know what they're about. Another way is to kind of create your own group. How many of you enjoy getting together with other folks and having a little party? Some. Maybe a tea party. Okay. If you're willing to get together, maybe if you can bring in 10 to 15 people into your home, or you get together with a couple of your friends and you invite some folks so you get 10 to 15 people into your home, and you're willing to do that, Matt or Kim would be glad to show up and speak to your little gathering and get a chance to talk with folks. it's another way to just, in a kind of informal way, to get people to get to meet Kim and Matt and get to know them, what they stand for. So again, communicate with us, or you have direct communication to Kim or Matt if you have email or whatever, but otherwise we can get you in touch with them. But it's a great way to help the candidates to get the word out and other people to get to meet them. And finally, for my announcements here, as Nancy was explaining about issues 2 and 3, the Ohio Christian Alliance is planning on publishing a voter guide on those issues. But they are a nonprofit organization that does these things based upon donations that they receive. So if you're willing to help out with them in that purpose, for that purpose, there's a basket on the back table there. It's marked Ohio Christian Alliance. And if you throw something in that basket before you leave, that'd be appreciated. And on Saturday, we'll have somebody that's going to be taking that money down to them. So, Kim had one, Nancy?
Chuck, I'm sorry, I wanted to mention one more thing that has to do with these, because I think it's so important to us, for us to remember what marijuana does. It's a very dangerous drug for several reasons. One is that it leads to worse drugs, as we all know. It often will lead to heroin, and that eventually leads to drug overdose and possibly death. It destroys family relationships. How many families have been torn apart because of this incident? And also, it is addictive. There's no doubt about it. It's addictive, just like any cigarette is. And prolonged tests and research has shown that prolonged use of it will cause brain damage. And another thing we do not want for our young people. And increase in crime. We have I know our responders, our police will tell you that we'll have an increase in road fatalities, car accidents and things, and also robberies. They have to steal to get the money, to get the marijuana. And Colorado is a good example. They're already saying some of the things that are happening there.
The other thing too, it's important for those of you who don't know, this is not the marijuana of the Woodstock generation. It is a lot more fierce than it used to be, and it is quite dangerous. And any hallucinogenic drug affects how the brain functions. The brain is chemical and electrical energy, so keep that in mind.
Okay.
But I do want to say one thing in favor of marijuana. I'm not talking about smoking it. I'm talking about the medicinal marijuana, where it's purposely grown to have a very low THC content. Excellent for seizures, excellent for kids with autism, excellent for cancer, excellent for pain. Okay, so marijuana
Right, as long as it's
has legitimate value, but as a recreational drug.
we have to be under medical supervision, not political.
Pardon me?
Have studies been done? Have there been medical studies?
Oh, I'm sure there have been. I don't print
But
it in.
you're gonna say that it's good from
No,
this
stop,
without
stop,
any.
stop. Don't attack me.
I'm not, I'm just asking
Don't
what the
attack.
source of your information.
A lot of different sources. If you want, I could print out a whole packet for you. But, right now I'm not prepared to back it up with peer-reviewed studies.
I don't think there's been enough empirical studies.
Well, the problem
about
is
THC and effects.
peer-reviewed studies are done by pharmaceutical companies. They're very expensive,
Yeah.
okay? Now, they're not going to be studying marijuana because it is not a pharmaceutical drug. So, you're not gonna find those.
Okay, let's
So, yeah, we're gonna say it's good.
let's move on. Dave, quickly.
Yes, I would like to share with you the fact that the Libertarian Party of Ohio does oppose issue 3, not because of some of the false statements we've heard here tonight, but because it would create an oligopoly And the oligopoly would have enough financial incentive to prevent any further moves toward the proper position, which is that individuals rather than government should decide what they take into their own bodies. So for that reason, we oppose issue 3. Although it does make some steps in the right direction, but very restricted, and the oligopoly would prevent any further move toward freedom. So if you want to have the drug war continue, you really should vote for issue 3, but I'm voting against, and the LBO has recommended a vote against.
Okay. All right. One final announcement that's from Kim.
I'll start with what I wasn't going to say, but just in case anybody's wondering, unlike Jeb Bush, I did not smoke marijuana ever, 40 years ago or since, never once.
Did you ever have a contact?
You did, but never inhaled.
No, never. Okay, so what I wanted to leave you guys with tonight, because I started out this meeting with some, disturbing news, negative news. So I wanted to offer somewhat of a silver lining to the situation. They would not be doing this if they didn't feel that we're making inroads. They completely underestimated us during the primary last year. And it appears that they've learned their lesson. They're not going to do it again. In fact, they are going to take desperate measures to try to stop us. So it's not going to be a pleasant process, but just know that we must be doing the right thing, because if we weren't, they'd be leaving us alone. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming out tonight. We have the library over here, Jim Lindhurst. It has that. Our next meeting is October 15th. We're working on a speaker for that. We don't have that to announce yet, but we will as soon as we have that confirmed. So thank you very much. God bless you. Thanks for coming out tonight.